Valleys People, episode 17. Duration 30, recorded 22nd of the 11th, 81. Replay TBA.
Hello and welcome again to the Valleys People. Today we journey for our first guest to Paterson and our second guest to Wyong on the Central Coast. And both of them are undertaking work which I think we can all be very justifiably proud of. I hope you can join us today for the Valleys People. Be back in just a moment. Thanks for joining us today. Our first guest comes from the Tokel Agricultural College at Paterson, the C.B. Alexander Agricultural College, maybe to give it its correct title. But the Tokel College is something quite unique in the Hunter Valley, if not Australia, and the Deputy Principal, Bruce Urquhart, has been associated with the college for many years as our first guest on the program. Welcome to the Valleys People, Bruce.
Thanks, John.
The magnificence of the Tokel property is something that perhaps we could do an entire interview on. In fact, the more I do this program, the more I realise that there could be a series on fantastic and famous homesteads of the Hunter Valley, and the Tokel's one of those. But at the moment it's an agricultural college and developed as such. And its whole purpose seems to be training future farmers, am I right?
That's the objective of the concept of the college, Ron, yes.
And how do you go about that? Because it's sited on one of the historic homesteads of the Hunter Valley.
Yes, Tokel, probably established in the early 1830s, has been associated with cattle breeding all over that period, and it was the bequest of C.B. Alexander that the property be devoted to the training of future farmers, and the college was established in 1965, and at that time it was operated by the Presbyterian Church. After approximately 5 years of operation, the church decided that it was better to hand the property over to the government and ask them to operate the college and give it the opportunity to be competitive with other agricultural colleges.
The thing that fascinates me, Bruce, is in fact the status that the college has, because you, to the average person you can just reel off names like agricultural college, but when it's a one-off situation, it's something really of credit to the Hunter Valley, isn't it, to all of us?
Yes, I think so, and I think a lot of this credit is due in no small part to the students that have gone out in the past. We try to train them for a practical situation where they will go onto properties, trained as operators, eventually managers. Some go to home properties, and I think it's due to their efforts that this college is so well known.
Now these are students that you take, what, from say the school certificate situation, and what courses would you be teaching them then?
We have two courses, the Certificate in Agriculture, which is the first year course, and which is the basic principles in agriculture in all its concepts: plant science, animal science, farm mechanisation, and farm management and economics. Now, in the second year of the course we have the Advanced Certificate in Agriculture, and this gives us the ability to be flexible, to give students the opportunity to streamline their courses so that they can make them tailor-made to their needs after they leave the college, where we do 1/3 of our course practical training and the other 2/3 is a lecture type program.
And I don't think you can get a better environment anywhere in Australia to start doing those sort of courses at the Tokel College.
We're very fortunate in having such a magnificent property to operate on.
And are these basically local students from the Hunter Valley?
No, we can boast that we've had students from every state in Australia bar Western Australia. We've had several from Tasmania, we've had quite a few from Victoria, Queensland, and they come from all parts of New South Wales, south, north coast, central west, the northwest, and quite a few from urban areas.
Now you've been with the college how long, Bruce?
17 years. I came on the 1st of December 1964 when the college first started.
Right, so you would be able to see if there have been any any changes in, say, the male and female intake? What about the girls on the land?
Well, originally, Ron, there were no girls at Tocal. It was like all other agricultural colleges, predominantly a male training. But in 1972, we took 6 girls. That was our first intake of girl students. And it finally got up to about 40% in 1979 intake. And I think since then it's stabilised to about a third of the students that are girls.
That's good. Of course, I suppose most girls love animals, not necessarily rodents, but animals. So are you having is that an effect on people that come?
Well, yes. We try to, in all our students, male and female, to interview before they come to determine their real interest in agriculture, because we're training them as future farmers, as we said originally. And a love of animals on its own is not enough to want to do an agricultural course, because they're working under a wide range of climatic conditions in wide areas of agriculture, and our course encompasses all these areas. The females in coming to Tocal, I think, have certainly made the course much more competitive. They've made we males realise how hard we have to work to keep up with them, and they certainly, those that are dedicated to the course, are doing it very well.
So they've sharpened up the guys a bit, have they?
Sure.
Yes, that's fascinating, Bruce. What would be a sort of typical week? A lot of people watching, of course, are not on the land. So what do these students have to do at, say, the prime or the zenith part of their course? What are they doing?
I think probably that's one of the real interests of the college, the fact that it is a variable sort of course. The first thing is that 1 week in 3 is devoted to practical training, and on those days they go onto every section of the college in a rotational order, and they do all the jobs that need to be done on the property, from fencing to milking to stock work, tractor work, pasture improvement, clearing, you know, all those sort of things. But the lecture week is slightly different. We have a combination of lectures and demonstrations, and a student might find himself sitting in a lecture room studying economics, perhaps beef cattle husbandry, animal health, for the first 3 lectures in the morning, and then he might find that he's out on a demonstration situation in the afternoon, perhaps doing something on artificial insemination, pregnancy testing, marking, branding of calves, or tractor operation, calibrating a seed drill. There's a whole heap of things that they get involved in.
It's a really strenuous life for 2 years, isn't it?
Well, I think it's a very interesting life for 2 years, and of course they have a range of assignments and quizzes that they have to keep up with their work, so there's a certain amount of extracurricular work they have to do as well.
Well, could I ask you a personal question, Bruce? How would you rate the finished student coming out of Tocal and the need of the person on the land?
Ron, I think that probably the property owners of the New South Wales have answered that for us, in that they now ring me up and say, we've heard about Tocal students, we've seen what they can do, we're impressed with them, can you get me one to work for us? So I think that the students that go out of here have had a very good broad basic training in agriculture to enlighten them to the range of agricultural activities that are available, to teach them a range of practical skills which will enable them to be able to go out and gain employment, and their managerial skills, which we hope that they will be able to use in 4 or 5 years' time, are there for them to utilise when they get that responsibility.
Yes, well, of course, they've got somebody to look up to, with yourself being a Royal Easter Show judge and someone who can declare champion cattle from others. I was talking to someone at the college who said, oh yes, well, the thing about Bruce is he's been everything from jackaroo to stud manager. So I was just wondering if you could ever define jackaroo for me, because I've heard the term many times.
Well, jackaroo was the old term that related to a lad who went out onto a property purely to gain experience, and he didn't get very good wages and he didn't get very good conditions, but he did get the opportunity to be involved in every aspect of farm training, both livestock, fencing, all those things that we have to do to operate a property. And I started that way because I felt that I needed that experience, and I developed them there through various positions to managerial status. And then the opportunity came for a stock manager at Tocal, and that made me think a little bit about my own career and what I'd done and what I hadn't done. And I realised I'd taken a lot out of agriculture. I hadn't put very much back in. So I thought this was the opportunity to apply for the job at Tocal and hopefully make some contribution towards the training of students, because my first opportunities came through going to Hawkesbury College and being given similar opportunities.
Well, it's certainly some motivation, Bruce. I guess now, as we drive past Patterson, we see the college there, there'll be new understanding. It's just such an immense size. It has such an incredible history, 150 years or so. It is now turning out students to which Australia can be justifiably proud. It's sort of doing everything, isn't it? I just wonder how you would rate it in the situation of agriculture nationally, I mean.
Well, I think it has made its place. As you say, it is unique in that it has the largest property of any college in Australia. We have a 5,400 acre or 2,200 hectare property.
Wow.
We run approximately 11 to 1,200 head of beef cattle, about 250 head of dairy cattle. We have about 500 sheep, 250 breeders with their lambs, 70 horses. We grow crops, we grow pasture, and we do some lucerne and some silage making. So it has a very wide activity, and the property, of course, has an immense history in that Tocal Hereford stud was world famous when it was dispersed in 1927. It set world record prices and probably was the parent herd of all Hereford breeding in Australia.
Well, Bruce, I guess a lot of people know a lot more about Tocal now. I thank you very much for being on the program today. I sort of thank you. I find myself doing this all the time with guests, sort of saying to them, thanks for the part they're playing in the Hunter Valley. But very sincerely, that is so, because there are just so many people in their own particular way going about increasing the status of learning and understanding, and you're one of those people. Thank you very much, Bruce Urquhart.
Thanks, Sean.
I'll be back in just a moment with our second and equally fascinating guest in the Valley's People. Welcome back to the Valley's People. Many times perhaps you've driven Newcastle-Sydney Road, Sydney-Newcastle Road, past Wyong, past the Burbank Azalea Farm. Maybe you've called in, maybe you haven't. If you have called in, it would be a rare moment to meet our next guest, and that is George Taylor, the Azalea Man of Australia. Some might say the Azalea Man of the world, winner of many medals, and of course those things we can talk about. Welcome to the Valley's People, George.
Hi.
I might say to you, if I can, right at the start, that I was sort of somewhat warned by a few of your peer group that said if I ever get George Taylor on the Valley's People, I will be meeting the greatest dreamer in the series, a man of vision and dreams. Is that true?
I don't think it's quite true. I'm a typical Australian. I feel that whatever the other countries can do, Australia can do it just as good, if not better. And I feel that unless you dream things, you've got nothing to attain, and I think this is what living is all about.
Well, were you dreaming things when you first went to Wyong in 1946 to start this enterprise of yours? What were your visions then?
I was dreaming long before that.
Really?
When I was 11 years of age, Luther Burbank, the American plant breeder, died. When I went to school, I wanted to be taught botany. All my life, I've had a one-purpose goal. That is to show Australia how to grow this nursery produce by the acre, by the mile, and then to have chain stores that would be able to consume it and get rid of it.
Well, was that what you were thinking of when you... Well, I think you pegged a tent, didn't you, at Wyong originally?
Yes, I went down to Wyong on the last day of March in 1946, and I was 31 years of age. I lived in a tent for 4.5 months until I could get this place developed and a house built, and we built 4 little rooms, and then my wife and son came down from Newcastle down to there, and we started this thing, Burbank Nurseries.
And why azaleas, George? Why did you say
Well,
that?
when I first went to Wyong, we were growing seedlings for Woolworths and the chain stores.
Right.
And at one stage we had 9.5 miles of seed beds, 4 feet wide. The whole of that hillside was terraced with contours, and we were growing seedlings for Woolworths.
9.5 miles? You said it quickly.
In that period of time, we would have grown in a year, by planting those beds 5 times, a line of seedlings from Wyong to Woolworths main store in Sydney of seedlings. But then I realised that things were going to change, and you would go from 1 week's holiday, 2 weeks annual holidays, 3, 4 weeks, and I could see lots of changes in prosperity, and that the gardeners were going to move away from seedlings and come to more established plants, and I felt that azaleas would be the plant.
There's George Taylor, the visionary, working again. When you look at all those azaleas, though, do you see them just as a form of natural beauty, or do you see them as dollar bills?
No, I feel that they're things of beauty, number one, and right through. And this is the thing that I've tried to teach my son more than anything else, that if you try and grow these things just to make $1 out of them, you'll try and grow too many, and you won't grow them good enough, they won't grow right for you, everything will go wrong. If you grow them because you love the things, they seem to grow better, and then you'll just make money through that.
George, I was reading about your life in which you said that the azalea, the original azalea strain, is priceless. Now, could you explain that to me? What do you mean by that?
Now that we started plant breeding azaleas at Wyong, and then we've had lots of failures, and gradually we found out what would be a good seed-bearing parent. Then we made a cross there, and from that cross we got 68 seedlings, and out of that 68 seedlings, the wonder breed of azaleas came from there, and that gave Silver Anniversary, Little Girl, Only One Earth, and all those varieties, but they all came out of the one seed pod.
Yeah, well, what do you mean that each of those original strains, that was priceless? What do you mean by that? You can't sell it for any value?
No, that the original plant of it, when the thing germinates and grows, you know that that's going to be a world beater. So now you start taking cuttings off it.
Right.
And then you take cuttings off the cuttings, cuttings off the cuttings. But that original plant, it's very dear to your heart. It's the one that has this merit, and I think to sell that plant, the original seedling of it, would be sacrilege.
Anyone want to buy them?
Oh yes, when we had the first plant of Silver Anniversary as an advanced plant, and it takes 8 to 10 years by this method to get enough plants before you can put them onto the market. So this plant of Silver Anniversary was about 3 feet high, and a chap came in and said, "That's the sort of plant I'd like to buy." And I said, "You haven't got enough money to buy that one." So he said, "Why haven't I?" I said, "Because from that plant we will gradually build it up until we've got 250,000 plants." Now I think this was the first time in Australia's history that so many plants had been released of a new variety. All over Australia was the story of this azalea that was going to come out. The name of it would be Silver Anniversary. Another interesting thing about Silver Anniversary too, that the Bank of New South Wales, when they advertise, they say first in Australia.
Yes.
So I took the opportunity of selling the first plant of this azalea, Silver Anniversary, to Sir Robert Norman from the Bank of New South Wales. So you can see that I am a proud Australian.
Indeed.
And it's part of Australia's history.
Yes. And is it true that you couldn't get into a botany class at school after all this?
Yes, when I went to Cessnock High School, I wanted to be taught botany. I think that all my life I've realised what my purpose is and what I wanted to do. I wanted to be taught botany, but I think when they said it was only for girls, that was the best thing, because again it set the challenge that I would do this in spite of them. And today I laugh and think, there, I've got there.
I think you're about the only man I could ever meet that believes he can control nature. Everyone else says, well, that's the will of nature, but you seem bent on moulding it to your will.
I think that man is the creator. I think man has this ultimate destiny that he will make and mould and turn nature to his will. I think ultimately they will use the mangrove swamp tree that has the ability and the know-how in its genes to take salt water up and use salt water, and to take the cells from there and transfer them over into rice plants so that rice can live in salt water. Wherever man cultivates the land over a long period of time, the land becomes loaded with salts through chemical fertilizers. So therefore, ultimately, we're going to have to breed plants that would have a much higher salt tolerance than what they have today. I feel that man is the creator, that he can change the genes in these plants at will. I think there is no end to man's ability and what he can do. Ultimately, when he gets into outer space, sure, he will take food with him. To take food with him, all he will need is a tiny little flask and one single vegetable cell. And from that one cell, through the space of time out there, so can he mould the plants that he'll want when he goes on to another planet. Sure, this is the ultimate of man's aims.
And your current laboratory at Burbank is in fact speeding up the process of nature, isn't it? You've reduced the cycle of azalea into, what, weeks rather than years?
Yes, where it's taken us 10 years to do it by this orthodox method, in this new laboratory that we've built, we would be able to grow 1 million plants of azaleas in 2 years. But then I would like to believe that that's the commercial side of it. On the back of this laboratory is a beautiful research room. And in this research room, I would like to think that I, or my son, or my grandson, will play some part in man getting out into outer space and being able to develop the things that man will need. And
You've always had this feeling towards fellow man, haven't you? Because you made that presentation to the United Nations, which was a world first and world recognition. What was the story of Only One Earth?
I think that was a tremendous compliment to Australia, and it was a tremendous compliment to Australian nurserymen that an Australian would be selected out of the 134 countries participating in the first United Nations World Environmental Conference at Stockholm on June the 5th in 1972, and that the theme of the conference was Only One Earth. It would be fitting then that a plant that would be grown all over the world, it would have a name, Only One Earth. It would tell the story to mankind of man's hopes that there is a green survival, only one Earth.
And that was the azalea that you took and presented to the Secretary General.
Yeah.
That's incredible, George.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a laugh from all the doctors and academics, I suppose, that George Taylor, who couldn't be taught botany, was there doing it on behalf of a plant that's millions of years old for the world. They tell me that you have a quote from Robbie Burns for everything. I'm just wondering if you could think about it for a moment. Do you have a quote from Robbie Burns that could summarise your life, your feelings? Because they go outside just the typical nursery man, don't they?
I think I would have to give you two. I think Bobby Burns was a man of the earth. I feel that I'm a man of the earth too. I feel that I have a vision of what man can do. Now, when I come to this first quotation, I think it's the crux of all the things that Bobby Burns wrote, and it is this: give me a spark of nature's fire, that's all the learning I desire. But then when I think again, and when I associate with these other people, then I like to think too, from Bobby Burns, why was an independent wish ere planted in the mind of man? This, I think, is the story of man's independence, this thinking and wanting to achieve things so that when you've gone, you've left a mark that, yes, I've passed this way but once.
Well, George Taylor, you've thought, you've achieved, and you're going to leave your mark on the azaleas of the world. George Taylor, Azalea Master of Australia, in fact, nay, Azalea Master of the world. Good to have you on the show. I'll be back in just a moment. And I trust you enjoyed our two guests today, both men of the land in their own individual ways. Bruce Urquhart, the Deputy Principal of the Tokal Agricultural College at Patterson, and also George Taylor, founder of the Burbank Azalea Farm at Wyong. I hope you enjoyed those people, and I hope too that you can meet two more of the Valley's people in our next program. Goodbye for now.